Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello and welcome to our show today. Thank you so much for being here with us. We have a great episode with Anna Mortimer, a life coach for moms. She shared so many amazing insights with us, including how to address mom guilt, which I love, especially this summer. I know it can be very challenging for some of the moms out there, and I know that mom guilt really creeps in and is quite a bummer. So we really talk about this in such a great way, and Anna shares some wonderful tools and way of looking at our thoughts. So having more compassion for ourselves and how that translates into the way that we parent. She shares the concept of questioning our thoughts and just how we talk to ourselves when we quote unquote mess up. And I love what she shared about teaching our kids how to feel negative emotions. And of course, I love anything that's related to self-care. And we did talk about this really, really great way of thinking of self-care. We talk about how it can take a little bit of time. We think sometimes that it needs to be a full day at the spa, and that is not the case. So she gives some really great examples of that as well. You can find Anna on her website and her Instagram. I'll link that in the show notes. So make sure to check her out if you are a mom. Also, if you are new to the show and are liking the podcast, please leave us a review on either Apple or Spotify, or actually wherever you listen. It is really helpful for us to get the word out and have more people aware of the podcast. So that would be amazing. Thank you so much in advance. And if you know any moms out there that are struggling with any of these topics, after you listen to this episode, please share it with them. You can just go to wherever you're listening, and you can copy a link, or you can just send over a podcast episode by text as well. So if you know anyone who you think would benefit from this, or this could be helpful to them, I would love it if you could share it with them. I've been really into coaching and self-coaching. It's made a huge positive impact on my life and on my family's life. So I'm really passionate about this topic, and that's why I also wanted to have Anna on, so that more people can be aware that there's this other way of doing things, and these tools are super helpful. So I hope you enjoy this episode and have a good day. Everyone, I'm so excited. Today we have Anna with us, and Anna, I'm so happy you're here. This is such an amazing topic that we're going to talk about today. And you are a life coach for moms. If you could just give us a little bit about you, what you do, and then we will go from there.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jess, for having me. Yes, my name's Anna Mortimer, and I'm a certified life coach. And my passion is to help working moms, who are juggling with a lot and who have a lot of mental load, to feel more at peace, more self-confident, and especially to let go of the mom guilt so that they can enjoy their lives and their parenting.
Oh, I found you and was like, I have to ask you to be on the show, because that is something that is so common, especially the guilt, which we'll talk about. But being a mom is so hard. It's so amazing, but it's so hard. And when there's been many times in my journey as a mom where I've been like, oh, I'm spinning, and it's like support is so important. So how did you, first of all, find this work, and how did you decide you wanted to work specifically with moms?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that was my first client. So to start with, I was a teacher for almost 20 years, and then I had three children. I have three young children, and I was fascinated by child psychology, and trying to do my best and make sure I was doing, the right thing and all that. And then one of my friends had become a life coach, and so I got into that, and that helped me so much at realizing, there was no such thing as the perfect mom or the perfect way to do it. And so the all the tools I learned helped me to let go of guilt, to create my own support. We're talking about support, create my own support, being my own best friend, um, and to create anything I wanted, which was the life and work balance that I wanted, having time with my children, and also creating this new career and business for me, and becoming a life coach to help other moms to let go of the guilt and found their perfect
That's
balance.
amazing. That's amazing. And I'm kind of the same. Like you find something that you need and it works for you and you're like, I want to share this with others because it's so important. But I feel like I want to talk about mom guilt, but before we do, I want to ask, what do you find is the biggest struggle for moms? And when they finally find you, do they say, this is my biggest issue, or these are the issues that I'm struggling with the most?
Yeah. So the main thing is the work-life balance, and
Mm,
that is thinking they have to do it all or wanting to do it all, and feeling bad either way. Feeling bad if they work, feeling bad if they don't, feeling bad if they spend time at home with children and not at work, and vice versa. And so it's the constant beating themselves up, thinking they're doing it wrong. And so they want some peace. They want to enjoy their children more. They want to be okay with what they want. They want to be okay to say no. And so they have this weight of guilt no matter what they do. And the second guessing themselves, and the fear of regret, the fear of making the wrong decision for them and their children.
mm. Yeah, I feel like what one of the words that you said earlier was being the perfect mom. And since that is just not attainable, if that's your goal, you're going to struggle and you're going to have the guilt. So, talk to us about that one because that's a big one, the guilt.
Yeah. I think is the guilt that they feel for them, but also for their children. I think it really also, some of them are tired of feeling like a bad mom
Mm,
because they think they're doing it wrong, and because they think they're letting their children down, or because sometimes their children are having a hard time and they think it's their fault. And so we start with, the understanding that life is 50-50. It's made of positive and negative emotions or experiences, and that it's okay. That's the human experience. And so they don't have to fix everything for their children or for everyone. And it's okay that they can put themselves first. It's really this the coaching is this image of you're going to put your life jacket or your oxygen mask on first, so that you can show up for your children or your partner or your work as you want to show up. But often they come to me and they're the last thing on the list, on the pile.
mm.
Because,
Yes.
self-care is selfish, not putting our children first is selfish. There's this whole, societal that we don't realize it's in us, this condition, in that we have to put everyone first. We have to care about everyone first. Have to be the good slash, partner and mom and worker. And so there's a lot of pressure that we untangle with the coaching.
Yeah. Oh, good. Okay, so you're starting to untangle the thoughts. And I think a big one, I love what you said about the 50-50 because a lot of people probably haven't heard of that concept of, we're not supposed to be feeling positive and like everything's perfect 100% of the time. And I think that's not just with us, like also our kids. Like I think we're so scared to have our kids struggle. We don't want to see that. We do not want to see our kids in pain, and like we want their lives to be no, not 50-50, 100.
Yes. Yeah, and it's human. But of course, it's an impossible task, because the human experience is that sometimes they will be sad or disappointed, like we are, as adults. But of course, many of us have been brought up with the so-called negative emotions are a problem that need to be fixed. Oh, come on, it's okay. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. Versus sometimes we might want to feel sad or disappointed because things didn't go the way we thought they were going to go. And so it's the same with our children. And of course, that's another thing we're with coaching, is being okay with our emotion, using our emotions are just, a GPS for our life, if you want. And so the more we're okay with our emotion, the more we become okay with our children's emotion. And the key thing is when we understand that it's part of life, we take it less and less personally. Because a lot of the suffering of the moms that I work with is children have a negative experience or a negative emotion. It's our fault. We should have done something different. We should have fixed it. And that's very painful.
Hmm. So you're working with moms to dismantle a lot of these thoughts, but this naturally it's just going to help you be a better parent too because you are sharing what you're learning with your own brain and this is so helpful for kids.
Well, and I really think, our children, they tend to imitate more than they listen. So of course, if we're being our own support, if we allow for our humanness, all our emotions, we don't beat ourselves up, we're becoming, our own little inner cheerleader, if you want, which is one of the tools I work with to help with self-confidence. The children are going to see that. And of course, the more we talk to them about that it's okay to feel this way, it doesn't mean anything about you. How do you want to show up now in this in this situation?
Mhm.
What can I do to support you, to support yourself? They're gonna build that resilience. They're gonna learn those skills to use their emotion to help them.
Yeah, I and that is such a valuable skill to have in life. And it's, when you're talking about having these tools, you talked about the inner cheerleader. Tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more about how you work with these moms and like where do you start? Like I know a lot of times we want to control. Like the moms want to control. We want to control the situation, we want to control our kids. And I think that's a good example of how we can't do it, but we feel like we can. And then we're stuck saying, okay, I can't let them be who they are because that, I need to make sure that they're doing X, Y, and Z. But really, it's like, it's really not true that we even have that control in the first place. It just drives us crazy.
Yes, and the only reason we want to control the children is because of how we feel in the moment, because of how we think. And that's a beautiful thing is that, of course, before we're aware of this work, we think our children cause our emotion. We think our children are making us angry and sad, and of course, the whole work of coaching is realizing that our thoughts about our children create our emotion. So nothing's gone wrong, and that's good news because then we don't have to make it mean that the child is, you know, bad or rude or um, grumpy or badly behaved. All those thoughts are so painful to us because then when we think that, we then think it's our fault. So the first thing is to remember that whatever behavior our children are doing have nothing to do with who they are or with who we are as a mom. It just comes from a thought they're having about the situation. And so the first thing that really helps is creating this imaginary wall between what's happening and us, like to not take it personally, reminding ourselves that it doesn't, what's happening here, child shouting or having done something, doesn't mean anything about the child and it doesn't mean anything about us. It's just a human having a reaction to an emotion, which is good news because from that place, having our own back, not taking personally, we can pause and decide, how do I want to show up? The only thing I can do is help myself to help my child who's having a hard time. And so suddenly, the more it's teamwork with you and yourself, which is the whole coaching, being your own support, the more is you and child facing the problem together as a team versus you against the child.
Yeah, I think that's really important too because like what you said, the way that you can kind of take a step back and say, okay, how do I want to handle this situation? If you're coming from a place of like, you're super angry, you're making it mean so many things that are
Yeah.
just like you're catastrophizing it, you're going to show up. And this is from personal experience. I've done this many times. You're going to show up in a way that you're not proud of. And then that's going to cause a whole bunch of other issues.
And here comes the mom guilt again, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I often say that the compassion for our humanness and our children's humanness is the first step to let go of the judgment. Because really, the guilt comes from judging us or the way we reacted or the way the child is reacted. And so the curiosity and compassion for the experience helps to let go of the judgment. That's the first step. And then, of course, when we're let go of the control, we can't control the child, but we can control us. That's the beauty of it. Because when it feels so out of control that we want, to shout because children's doing so. The good news is when you work on being your own support, you realize actually I do have control here. It's me. I can control
Mm.
me. That's all. And so that doesn't mean anything about the child, the child shouting, what? I can control me though, and how I want to help myself to help my child in this situation.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like so maybe we could talk about like an example. If you are in a situation as a mom and you feel like your child is being disrespectful or they're acting in a way, you're taking their behavior and you're saying, this child is being disrespectful. And then I could see how that gets really, it can escalate in your mind of how this is a reflection of bad
Yeah.
parenting. You're doing something wrong.
Mhm.
Everything needs to change. Like the way that you come from it, if you get to that point, your reaction to the child is going to be maybe a little bit overboard, or
Well,
maybe you're gonna get so upset and work yourself up so much that you've lost the control that you're talking about.
yeah. And then you might end up being the one disrespectful because what happens often, the brain has this powerful thing that we tend to mirror. So we think our child disrespectful for the way the child's talking. And then we get angry and then we're the one being disrespectful with the way we might show up. And so again, in that moment, it's can't control what the child's saying or doing right now, right? Unless physically you do it. But it's reminding ourselves it doesn't mean anything about the child or me. The child saying some words because the child's having this experience. And the child might be upset. Let's take the example where you have let's say a family rule, right? And the child has crossed that line. So it makes sense that we're going to think the child's being disrespectful, right? So let's say in our house we don't swear, we don't say swear words, let's say, right? Or we don't bring the computer in the bedroom, or we don't get up from the table. A family rule that we have. Now, if the child crosses that boundaries and swear at you, or sneak in the computer in the room, or leaves the table without clearing up, right? It makes sense that our brain's going to go to disrespecting the family rule, right? But from that place, of course, we're going to be angry. And then we're going to be like, what on earth do you think you're doing? Blah, blah, blah. And then we're disrespectful. What I'm offering you is it doesn't mean you have to accept the behavior of the child because you're still the mother who's reinforcing, who wants to reinforce the family rule. But it's the child is doing this because he's having an emotion and a thought, right? Nothing to do with you. I bet that the child thinking, I can't be bothered to clear the table, right? Or, oh, my mom's so annoying. Or, I just wanted to chat to my friend, right? It's not consciously saying, I'm going to disrespect this family rule on purpose to annoy my mom. But that's what our brain will offer us. And then we act
Yes.
crazy. So that's when the tools come in. So I'm being my own support and I'm not going to take it personally. I'm going to use my superpower that I've learned with the coaching. Child saying words, it's on him, he's having an emotion. Now, I still might want to reinforce the rule, right? But how will it sound like from I'm having my own bag, nothing to do with me, my child's having a hard time? You might say, hey, listen, I know you're upset. And then it doesn't mean we're not going to reinforce the boundary and the consequence, right? We're not swearing. If you swear, this is what happens, right? We just put the consequence, right? I know you wanted to still talk to your friend, but I'm afraid the family rule is no computer, so here's the consequence. Without the whole drama of the child's bad, I'm bad, and then I'm shouting. Do you see what I'm saying? We've become our own support. We've understood what was going on for the child, and we still reinforce our boundaries.
Yeah, I think this is really important to mention too, because I can see some people thinking, "Oh, well, I value these rules and I'm going to do it this way. And I'm not going to let my kid get away with everything." And continue to be, or I don't want a spoiled kid, or I don't want this, so I have to act a certain way when you aren't having to do that. You can still have boundaries, you can still have consequences, but you're coming from a different place. It's really less suffering for you.
Yeah. And of course, it means less suffering in the future because we haven't shouted and all that, which means we're not going to beat ourselves up for it.
Right. Like, cuz
Now,
then you got a damn double whammy there.
yeah. Now, again, if we do shout because we're human and sometimes we go into think is disrespectful and shout, again, the coaching helps you with the compassion part. What was happening for me is I was taking personally and making mean something about the child and me. So it makes sense. I shouted. And how do I want to support myself next time it happens? Because, of course, our children are going to cross boundaries that we put because that's what they do. They test it. So we're going to expect it. We're going to expect that next time children might still not clear the table or sneak the computer. And now we've learned something. Maybe we don't want to shout next time. So what are we going to put in place to support ourselves, which is the way we're going to think about it to show up in a way we want to show up.
Yeah, and I feel like that is just such a better feeling too. If especially if one of your values or um a priority to you is acting a certain way as a mom. And, it feels like it could be so easy to get overwhelmed in the moment. But if you have these tools set up in place and you're able to use them for support, and even if you mess up, like that's okay. Like not going crazy, beating yourself up again, and then realizing, okay, what can I do for the next time? Because there will be a next time.
Yeah.
And I know probably some of the moms have, there's different seasons and different ages. What do you find as moms go from, okay, I have a toddler, which that is just exhausting, or I have a newborn too. Now I have a little bit, my kids have more independence, but they're emotionally like they can be more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all phases. But again, it's bringing back to what we have control over. So, as you said, you were talking about there's a way we want to show up as a mom according to our values, right? We might want to, put limits, show love, support, right? And so what happens is at different phases, we can create our own definition of what a good mom is, right? That we have control over. Because we can't control toddler doing things or children having their emotion, but what we can control is what we want to think of our role as success, right? Because something that's really painful for the mom I work with is this: I'm not good enough, you
Mm.
know. And who decides? And of course, the definition might change according to the stage of your child, right? But that definition of what's good enough for you, that definition of success as a mom for right now, with the child being, climbing everywhere or the child having friends problems, that's very much in your control. And so that's something we work on as well is, and that's hard because society has a definition of what's good enough, right? Or maybe our family of origin has a definition of what's that. But what we work together with mom is we work to define their own definition of success that they have control over, right? So maybe right now I'm very tired, and so my definition of success as a mom, or my definition of good enough, is going to be reading a story at that time, right? Or it's going to be make sure I'm at home for bedtime twice a week, right? I make up. Make sure I'm here if my child I know comes back from school and sometimes has issue with friends. I'm going to be here 3 times a week at that time. I'm going to do this, 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 this. And then if that's done, even when my brain attacks me, like that was not good enough and you're terrible and you should have been there and you should have done more. Thank you. But look, that's my definition of good enough right now. And that's okay.
Yeah, I think, and the brain will offer us a lot of things about this. I think that's one of the best things about coaching that I found is it gives you an opportunity to realize what is coming through 100 times a day, or probably many more times than that, is not always something we have to hold on to or listen to. We can even say, I don't like that thought. I'm no, thank you.
And that's the thing. I love that. Yeah, I talk to my brain like that because I've quieted down the volume of the mom guilt, but it always going to knock on the door, right?
Sure.
The child comes up and say, "You've missed my match today or my concert." Being the mom yells on the knock on the door. And the work is to catch it lovingly, like I was expecting you. Of course, you were going to show up. I've missed the match. And then create, so another tool as being your own super, your own cheerleader is creating your own little safety net. When you find yourself falling on the floor because you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I'm a terrible mom. Are you going to kick yourself, or are you going to help yourself to get up? That's my image of the safety net. If I suddenly have that pang in my chest, I'm like, hey, even if I miss the match, I'm a good mom. Because look, my definition of success is personally, I give 10 minutes of one-on-one with each child, which is already a lot per day. And it could be a quick chat in the evening or reading a book, or depending on the age, right? And so my safety net is, hey, you're good enough. You missed the match, but you're here now and you can have a chat about it. Talking back, expecting those voices, because we're human, and the brain does that on purpose to try to make us, do things differently. But we can remind our brain we had already decided to do this on
Yeah,
purpose.
and I think separating it out is not something that I think that's definitely a skill to learn and practice, because that's just not something that I was even aware of. It's like you just
Oh,
think all these thoughts and you just think that's just me.
true.
It,
And you just think that's true as well. You think that's the truth.
it's true. Yeah.
Feel very real. You're a terrible mom. You missed the match. Or look, your child's crying. It's all your fault. It feels very true. And so, of course, as you said, the first work with coaching is to notice that those are thoughts our brain are offering us. They feel terrible in the moment, but they're not real. They feel real, but they don't reflect reality, because the reality is just my child's having an emotion. And I had chosen to do this. My past self, I decided already that's my definition of good enough. That's okay. And so it's reassuring yourself every time. It doesn't mean those thoughts or the mom guilt are not going to be there. Of course they will, because we're human, but we don't have to give it so much airtime. That's the work we do. Because look, how do you show up from beating yourself up? Right? You're in your head, and it doesn't help you to be more present with your children or enjoy the parenting, right? So the work is to quiet that so that we enjoy our lives more and that we actually do the things we want to do from love, if we want.
I love that. And it's so true. It's like sometimes I think we think we have it's better if we feel bad about something, and then that
Mhm.
way you show up better. You're like you'll take care of it that way. Or it's almost like, it reminds me of like being mean to yourself when you're trying to lose weight. You're like, if I'm nice to myself, I'll never lose it. But actually that's not true at all.
No, but I love you why you're saying that, because of course some moms are very attached to that. No, but if I'm forgiving myself for shouting, I'll just keep shouting forever. Versus, of course, the more we're mean to ourselves inside. Listen, and that's really important. I want you to hear that. The more we shout at ourselves in our head, because really when we're mean at ourselves, we're like, come on, you shouldn't. Well, of course, it's going to show up in the way we are as a mom with our children. The more we shout at ourselves inside, the more we're going to shout at our children. The brain thinks it's useful and it thinks it's going to put us back in our place and that will be better tomorrow. But it just perpetuates that behavior. So, what I'm offering you is really, it starts within. It starts by being your own best friend, being your own nice mom to yourself inside. Because the more you speak to yourself nicely and calmly and with love and compassion, the more you're going to actually do that with your children.
Yeah.
And listen, also, no matter what we do, our children are going to have thoughts and feeling and do their own thing, right? But we're not that powerful. And that's also a bit of a relief.
Yeah,
Because
I
I mean,
do.
we're going to shout, we haven't traumatized them because they're going to have thoughts and feeling about it. It's okay.
I think that's so important to mention, because I do think that people, it's like we don't want to get our children off the hook, and we don't want to get ourselves off the hook, and so we go about it in this bullying way. It just doesn't work as well, and it's like you're not letting yourself off the hook by being kind. And I feel like that is just really something that we're not
Oh
told.
my gosh, I love what you're saying that. I love what you're saying that. Because listen, look, think of when you've messed up or whatever that means for you, right? You've missed the match, you forgot something, right? Or you shouted. It's a bit like a little child that's fallen off of the bike. Think of that. Now imagine your child falling off the bike when it's learning. Will you be there shouting, "Oh my gosh, you shouldn't have done that. Why did you do that? That's terrible. You're stupid and you're," or would you say, "Oh my gosh, it's hard, isn't it, to pedal," and help him back on the bike? But that's the way we talk to ourselves. We wouldn't dream that's the way we talk to ourselves inside, right? But we wouldn't dream to do that with, a friend who messed up or a child that's having a hard time.
That's so true. It just it doesn't make sense when you lay it out and talk about it, but it's what we do.
When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today.
So, say we have a situation where our kids are going through something, like they're going through a hard time, and you're worried about them. Like this is something that I think comes up a lot with the people that I speak to. And honestly, no matter what the age, right? Like what I'm learning is adult children, parents are still very worried about their adult children too. Like we don't just like get to 18 and we're like, "Oh, everything's fine. Now they're adults. I don't have to worry about them anymore." But sometimes this worry over kids' situations or things that are going on in their life really bring a heaviness to us
Yeah.
and as moms. What do you talk
Yeah.
about with your
Yeah.
moms about
I
that?
love this question because this heaviness, of course, we're human. We want our children, we don't want our children to be in pain. It's totally human. But the heaviness also comes from the fact that sometimes we fight with reality, like we wish
Mm.
they were not in pain, or sometimes some of them they blame themselves for it because they think they should have made a different decision about something regarding their children, or it's also because they worry about what it will mean for the future. And so it's normal human feeling. We don't want to feel happy that our children are sad, right? Are having a hard time. So that's normal. But we add on top I need to fix it. I shouldn't have done that. It's my fault. And that means it's going to have, a hard time in the future. So do you see, we add layers and layers and layers, which is why I feel heavy. So what I offer the moms I work with is first is come back to the present, have your past self back if it's because of a decision, because your past self thought that was the right decision at the time. And we do that work about lacking our reasons. In the moment when we're in an indecision about making a decision about school or friends or something with our children, do we lack our reasons? And if we do, even if in the future it might not have been the right decision for whatever reason, we're not going to beat ourselves up because at the time we thought we were doing the best we could. So we strip the layer of the future problem, bring it back to the present. We strip the layer of beating our past self back. She did the best she could. So now we're left with normal human pain in the sense of we might want to feel sad that our child's sad. And it comes back to that's the human experience we're having right now. And listen, mothers, our children sometimes are going to want to be upset about something. They might want to be upset that their friend said this, right? Who are we to decide that they should not be upset? And so it's being okay with our upset and helping them with their upset because that's how they're feeling right now. And it's human. It's part of life.
Yeah, I think that really helps put things into perspective. It's okay because that's life. Like it's still okay to be sad about it. And
Right.
also and not jumping to don't cry, like don't be upset. That
Right.
let them feel it.
Yes, because otherwise we send the message that first of all, they should not be feeling that. So they're gonna kind of make themselves wrong, right? is that normal that I feel sad? My mom doesn't want me to, so maybe it's a problem. And also, it sends the message that somehow it's not a good thing to feel sad. Versus, look, us as adults, sometimes we choose to be upset about something. It makes sense, right? It kind of match the situation. And that's the first step. Also, we can, when we strip all the layers and we don't beat ourselves up, it makes sense you're feeling sad. I would feel sad too if I was you, right? We normalize it. But, it takes practice because, of course, to start with, like, no, don't want my child to be sad. Need to fix it. So, but that's the work we do, being okay with emotions.
Yeah. And just feeling the emotion that, yeah, I'm sad about this emotion and I shouldn't feel like this. So I'm going to feel bad about this. And, and just like those layers that you're talking about just add so much extra
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
suffering. So,
Right.
yeah, I love that.
I have compassion for our brain because it feels productive, right? Listen, it's easier, moms. And I'm with you too. I do that too. It's easier to be like, oh, right, okay, I shouldn't have done that. And maybe I could do that. It feels productive versus feeling the sadness, which is a bit of a bummer.
Right. It is a bit of a bummer. And that goes back to like the things that we do instead of feeling those emotions. And I'm sure you talk about that with your clients too.
Yeah. 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 So the brain's very clever to stop us from feeling that quite uncomfortable bummer of emotion, right? So let's try to change everything, being this control freak or some moms, they'll eat to or drink to not feel that, and then they'll try. So that's another thing.
That's another thing you can examine. So the last topic I like to talk about, you mentioned it before, because this is a show very much about taking care of ourselves as women, and self-care comes up quite a bit, and you mentioned, especially you work with working moms. So that's really important it's important for every mom to take that time for themselves. And that's really hard to do, especially like I always say, like disclaimer, if you have a baby or, self-care, don't try to like get out to the spa or like feel bad if you can't do things like that.
Self-care would be just to be able to drink a hot cup of coffee, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it depends. Like, be realistic here, but also talk to us a little bit about self-care for moms and why it's so important.
Yeah, and I like you putting that because mom guilt gets in the way of self-care, right? Because putting ourselves first for even 10 minutes, the guilt will come up. Right? I can't possibly, go to the gym now or have a bit of time for me because I've got all these things to do. And so, but of course, it's what I was talking about, the putting your life jacket first. Think of, if you want to show up from calm and love and compassion, might be easier if you have time to have a shower and a coffee or whatever you like to do in the morning, that rushing around and do everything for everyone. So it's almost, think of, and self-care again could be getting up 10 minutes earlier to have your coffee in a quiet time, right? Or wake up a little bit earlier to do some yoga. It could be at your lunch break to actually shut your computer and go for a walk, right? It could be leave work 10 minutes earlier and actually walk on your own without children or anything else. Tiny thing. It's really, the minimum of action. Because sometimes that also, as you said, mom thinks self-care is a day in the spa. How can I possibly take a day out of the spa? So we start very small. It's filling your cup just with those 10 minutes. Personally, I have a buffer time, something I call a buffer time. So, once you've dropped your children to school and you feel you've already done a day of work, well, it's only 9:00, right? And so I make sure I have buffer time once the children are at school before I start working. And sometimes half an hour, but at least 10, 15 minutes. I don't plan anything in the calendar so that I can just breathe or have my coffee, read, do something for me before that. And same, I have 10 minutes or half an hour if I can of buffer time at the end of work before the next working day, which is, school pickup, food, bedtime, bath, bedtime, which can be hard work, especially when they're little. And every time you're in front of those 10 minutes for you as a little breather, your brain be like, no, you should work, or you should do this, you should do that. And so again, it's practicing being your own support. no, I deserve this moment. I'm doing this for me so that I can show up more calmly for everyone.
Oh, I love that. I love that buffer time. Just give yourself a little bit of time before, it's like a transition.
Yes.
And where do you fit in your day? Like time for you.
Yes.
And that's a great time to do it. I try to do that with my schedule as well. Well, after I drop the kids off, it's like, let me get a walk in. And
Yes.
that is just like a nice little break before the work day starts or whatever I have to do that day. It's amazing.
And I
Yeah,
notice when I don't do it, if I'm feeling a bit grumpy and tense, like when the children want me in the evening, I'm like, oh, just leave me alone. I'm like, okay, what's going on for me? Oh yeah, I didn't have my buffer time, or oh, it was too short. Or I didn't. It makes a big difference.
and that's about being that practice of realizing what your needs are too. I mean, that's a practice.
It is. And you have to listen to yourself and you have to have that time for you. And of course, the coaching sessions are also buffer time for those moms because it's time for them
Yeah.
to become more conscious of why they, their thoughts and their feeling and behavior and creating, that support and what they can put in place to support themselves.
I love that. Well, this has been so helpful. I know people are going to want to find out more about you and where they can find you. So if you could share that with us, that would be amazing.
Yes, of course, of course. I mean, you can find me on Instagram, Anna Mortimer _coach. And I also have a website, Anna Mortimer Coach. But I will pass that on to you.
Yes, pass that on to me. I'll link everything in the show notes so people can find you. And I love your Instagram. You have so many little great tips on there. And good, it's a good reminder. This might be new to a lot of people. This is work worth doing. And, it's never going to be an easy job, but I feel like with tools it's more enjoyable, so much more pleasurable, and I think it's just so important. So I'm so glad you were able to come and share with us.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.